Hello, YouTube. My name is Tilt Matry, aka Show Matry, and I am here to teach you how to play Vampires today. Vampire is an OTK slash control deck. Not really OTK. Well, it can be OTK, but control set up into a one kill is more what this deck does. Um, but it is very strong at what it does. It can swarm the field really quickly and catch your opponent by surprise with lethal options, and there is a ton of ways to play it. We're going to go over that. Alright, so there's different ways to play it. We're going to go over the whole spectrum of the deck and what you're going to do and the combos you're going to do. Alright, so we're going to go with these two cards are your main play starter, Gozuki and Sam Skull. Now, while it is ideal that you have 3 each, if you have 2 Gozuki like this, you'll be fine. 3 Sam Skull are completely free to play. If you want to play this deck, you need 3 of them. You should have 3 because it's a rare and a main box. Along with 2 to 3 Gozuki. So basically, they both relatively do the same thing. They send 1 zombie from your deck to the grave. Again, the purpose of... Excuse me. One over the other is that when Samurai Skull leaves the field by your opponent's card effect, it will float into a level 4 or lower zombie out of the deck. So if they bounce it with a Cyber Slash, they hit it with a Dimensional Prison, whatever, that really never comes up, but I'm trying to think of a back row that really comes up. Karma Cut, right? They Karma Cut it, they sin it, they do something to it, then it gets removed, and then you get to float into a level 4 or lower zombie out of the deck. Now, another thing you need to know about Sam Skull is that if they're drowning it, you will not get the effect because its location becomes unknown. So it forgets that it was removed, just as a result of being drowning back into the deck. So that's something you want to be careful of. Gozuki's difference from Samurai Skull is that when it's sent to the graveyard, you can banish another zombie from your graveyard and then summon a zombie out of your hand. Now, and a good thing to note is that this is an if effect. Gozuki cannot miss the timing. Alright, so that's very important to understand. Next is Vampire Red Baron. Alright, so we're going to get into the main Vampire core. So the main 2 boss monsters you need to know outside of your Exceeds are Duke and Baron. So what Baron does is, once per turn you pay 1,000 life. You can swap control of 1 vampire you control and 1 monster they have and change positions between you and your opponent. So if you have like a retainer and they have like a face down bouncer, you can take it. Or if they have like a duo that's face up, you can take it. This is really, really good Baron because it allows you to take your opponent's monsters and enable Exceed plays. The skill we are running here is level tuning. This is the build that I took in the battle phase, so I'm going to go over that. Why level tuning is a thing. Also, when Baron destroys an opponent's monster by battle at the end of the battle phase, you can float into that monster. Now, another thing to note about Baron is its effect to steal targets. Its effect to steal targets. So that's something you want to know. Next is Vampire Duke. Duke's effect is, it's got a couple. When it's normal summon, you can target 1 dark vampire in your graveyard, special summon it. Pretty good in face-up defense. When this card is special summon, you can declare 1 card type monster spell trap. Your opponent sends 1 type of that deck to the graveyard. You can only use this effect of Duke once per turn. And you can only use this Exceed material for a dark monster. So you can't go into like Utopia with this Dweller or Diamond Dire. You can only make Sin and Roach in the current build with it. But that's irrelevant. The main thing you need to note is you're going to use this to trigger Kingdom. And I'm going to show you how. And we'll go over what Kingdom does when we get up to it. Next is your play extenders. Well, also being a play starter is Retainer and Familiar. They both pay 500 life points from the graveyard and summon themselves to the field. They can activate their respective effects hard once per turn. And also, Retainer will search a spell, a vampire spell or trap from your deck, while Familiar will search a monster. That's their only difference. Retainer is also a level 2, so you can use it to make crumbling logos. So that's something you want to know. Next is 3 copies of Book of Moon. Now, I know I know I'm about to send everyone on YouTube into a frenzy. Alright? You do not need Book of Moon. You can use Chalice is a perfect replacement. You can run Fiendish Chain. You can run Spear Karibo. Smashing Ground might even work for you. This is a good side deck choice. That's another reason why I put this in there. Okay. So you do not need 3 Book of Moon. If you do not have it, don't worry about it. One more thing to note is that if you lack a 3rd Gozuki, smack in a 3rd Awakening. So let's say I don't have 3 Gozuki, I would do this, right? I could throw in a 3rd Awakening if I don't have a 3rd Gozuki. Okay? So that could be a replacement for that. Just want to take note of that. Alright. Next, we're going to go over Vampire Desire. Now, this is a card that many people run either 1 to 3 of, but I ran 3 of it in the tournament. So, I'm going to tell you why. This card is great to play through a bouncer. What ends up sucking with this deck is that if you go turn 1 with Vampires and, turn 2 into a bouncer and automat sound like a bouncer on you, then you need a way to play through that negate. So you have Desire. So Desire has 2 effects. It can also be searched with Retainer because it is a vampire spell trap. Alright, so Desire has 2 effects. First effect, target 1 face-up vampire you control. Send 1 vampire monster from your deck to the graveyard with a different level than that monster. And if you do, the targeted level becomes that level. Now, if you target something like Samurai Skull, right, and they negate it, you could send a vampire from your deck to the grave. So essentially like a Gozuki effect. You could send a Retainer or a Familiar from your deck to your graveyard and then start off. Because you want these 2 in the grave because they special summon from the grave and they get searching. Second effect. Target 1 vampire monster in your graveyard, send 1 monster you control, and special summon that target. So, it's a good way to get Duke or Baron back on the field as recursion. Now, another thing you need to know about Desire is it changes the level of your monster. So, if you use it on something like a Familiar and dump, like, a level 4, like Sorcerer if you're playing this, then you could send this to the graveyard and allows you to rank 4 instantly. So that's something you might want to know. Next is Vampire's Domain. Now this is a continuous spell. Once per turn, you can pay 500 life points during your main phase. This turn, you can normal summon 1 vampire in addition to your normal summoner set, even if this card leaves the field. So that's important because you can go Samurai Skull, send Retainer, activate Retainer, pitch Familiar, search Domain, activate Domain, pay 500. Send it with Familiar because this can send up from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard, both of them, to search their respective cards. Spell or trap, monster. Okay? So this is something that you need to know. Very common that you send Domain to the graveyard in order to extend. Okay? Now, next is, second effect is, when a vampire monster you control inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you gain life points equal to that monster's attack. So, equal to the battle damage that was inflicted, not to the attack, equal to the battle damage inflicted. So if you swing in with like a Baron, right, you hit them directly, you gain 2,400 life. If you have Kingdom, you'll gain 29, I'll explain that. Retainer for 12, Familiar for 5, Duke for 2,000, right? So a really good way to gain life back. Vampire Kingdom, field spell. Now, all zombie monsters gain 500 attack during damage calculation only. This applies for your opponents if you're against Shiranui or the mirror match. Be very careful. Once per turn, when a card is sent from your opponent's deck to the graveyard, target 1 card in the field, send 1 dark vampire monster from your deck to the graveyard or your hand. Destroy that target. Important to note here, this is a mandatory effect to send from the hand. Mandatory effect to destroy a card. So if your opponent is playing Thunder Dragons and activates Charge of the Light Brigade right off the bat, this is going to go off, whether you want it to or not. So that's something you want to pay attention to. Other than that, this is very important to the vampire strategy. You can also send this to get your Retainer and Familiar effect. Or if you have this on the field, you could trigger these from your graveyard, your Retainer and Familiar. Next is the Trap lineup, Takeover. This can also be searched for Retainer. What makes this extremely good is that Take over if you have no card in your field zone and all face-up monsters you control a zombie type. Now, the one thing I want to say before we go on with this, turn 1, this is mainly what you want to search. Assuming you don't open up Kingdom, this is mainly what you want to search here. So, if you have no card in your field zone and all face-up monsters you control a zombie type, so even if you have like a skull and a face-down vampire, you can still do this because all face-ups will still be zombies. Activate 1 Vampire Kingdom directly from your deck. Then you can special summon 1 Dark Vampire from your graveyard in face-up defense. You can only activate 1 Vampire Takeover per turn. So, what you generally want to do, turn 1, is either summon one of these two, send your Retainer, activate Retainer, pitch Duke from your hand, search Takeover, and then you can take over summon Duke, and then you initiate a pop. We're going to talk about that right now. So, Kingdom has the ability to initiate destruction on your opponent's side of the field. Target 1 card, destroy it. When a card is sent from the deck to the graveyard, your opponent's deck. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, either by their own effects or Duke. Duke, remember we talked about this earlier, it's a first effect, allows us to target either on summon, target 1 of monster, spell, or trap, and make your opponent set 1 card of that specific type from their deck to the graveyard. So if you go up against Thunder Dragon, it's a good idea to target spell, because you can make them send Sark or Melody, and that's really good. Or Light Brigade if they run it. Now, another thing you need to note is Duke is a when effect, so it can miss timing. So make sure you do not activate your takeover as Chainlink 2 or higher. Same with the Awakening if you want to summon Duke. We're going to get to that in a second. Make sure it's initiated on Chainlink 1. Now, next is Vampire Awakening. This card special summons 1 vampire monster from your deck, but destroys it during the end phases its turn. You can only activate 1 Awakening per turn. Really good way to summon your Retainer or Familiar on the field. When they are a special summon period, does not have to be from the graveyard. You get to search. Also can summon Duke from the deck if you open up Kingdom. So really good. And it can also be searched with Retainer. Ballista Squad's just really good destruction. Again, you don't really need this. You can use any back row you want. But, like I said before, Gozuki, you summon it. Not Gozuki, Ballista, you tribute a monster on the field. Since we swarm a lot with Takeover and your Vampire effects, it's very easy to use this card and be able to pop cards in the field for the advantage you're getting. Now the Exceeds is Malevolent Sin. This allows us to OTK. Dire Wolf for popping niche cards on the field. Crumbling Logos, 2 level 2s. Now I'm going to go over this because probably a lot of you do not know what this thing does. You can detach 1 Exceed material from this card. Target 1 face-up a card in the field while Crumbling Logos remains on the field. Its effects will be negated. So if they have like a circle out, you can negate that. If they have a Necro Valley, you can negate their Necro Valley. So there's niche interaction with this. You can also force a bouncer. Also, the Exceed monsters you use, the materials. So if you use like Familiar and Retainer, instead of them being banished, they will be sent to the grave. The one other thing I didn't bring up is, after you special summon Retainer and Familiar from the graveyard, they get banished. Okay? But if you use them as Exceed material, they don't. So that's something you need to understand. Roach is just for negating Lavianeer and Synchro Summons. Utopia Ray in here for OTKing, and we'll talk about that with level tuning. Same with Utopia, the Ray package. Dweller against graveyard effects like Blue Eyes. This is not the side deck, these are just optional text, some of it's side deck. Dragon Necro, this is good for a Master of Fusion build. So its effects are that monsters cannot be destroyed by battle with this card. It also takes 2 zombie monsters. And it has to be fusion summoned. You cannot revive this afterwards. At the end of the damage step, if this battled a monster with a level, so Exceeds don't count, that has an original attack level, that monster's attack becomes 0. And if the monster is still face up, you can special summon 1 Dark Soul token. Zombie Dark level question mark, attack question defense 0. And the attack and level become the original level and attack of the monster battle. So if you attack a Blue Eyes, it won't be destroyed in battle, but you'll get to summon a 3000 attack token, and Blue Eyes will go to 0, and then you get to lethal over this. I think level tuning is better, but this is definitely an option. Plasma's here for the Bring It build, which could see more popularity because Witchcrafter are becoming a thing again. So, if you want to side deck Bring It, it's very easy to drop a Plasma on the field, lose 1,000, take their Veer, very nice. Forbidden Chalice is a replacement for Book of Moon if you do not have it. So if you don't have Book of Moon, Chalice is very, very cheap replacement. Act now because it's half off gem sale, so you can get Chalice for half the price. So I would definitely act now on that. Vamp is an optional tech to play. What Vampire Vamp does is you tribute 2 monsters on the field. When she's normal summon, or when a vampire is normal summon beside her, you can target 1 monster your opponent controls with 2,000 or more attack, and equip it onto Vamp, and then it gains the attack equal to that. Another good, easy way to get Vamp on the field is Sorcerer. We're going to go over that in a second. So that's a very good, easy way to get a beater. Also, unlike Baron, this is a trigger effect on summon. Baron isn't. Baron's an ignition effect, which means you have to wait for the summon to resolve. This activates on summon. Even if they floodgate this, the condition's already been met. The target's already been targeted. So if they floodgate it, their monster will go to the graveyard. Vampire Awakening. We talked about this. You can run an extra Awakening if you lack 1 Gozuki. Fiendish is there for an optional tech if you don't like Book or Ballista, or you don't have either. Smashing is a good side deck card to get rid of Strike Bouncer on turn 2. Slash Lady. Whatever you want to do with it. Good for removal without having to discard and waste too much hand advantage. Excuse me. Spear Karibo, good against OTK decks like Sidra. DD Crow, good against Automat to banish their head targets or their coat targets. Vampire Sorcerer, now we didn't talk about this. If it's sent to the graveyard, by your opponent's card, either by battle or card effect, you can add 1 vampire monster or spell trap from your deck to your hand. Also, while this card's in the graveyard, you can banish it and then normal summon 1 vampire monster without tributing. So you can use it to summon Vamp, Baron, or Duke, or Grace, but we don't play Grace because Grace isn't that good in my opinion. Also, you can send it with Desire because it's a level 4. It can make for a rank 4 exceed very easily. Sorcerer could be an optional one of. Mystical Space Typhoon, good side deck card against Gaia. Gets rid of back row. Lancia is very good against Thunder Dragon because this can struggle in the Thunder Dragon matchup. So being able to stop them from summoning Levianeer is extremely good. Alright. Let's get into some combos. Alright, so we're going first. This isn't ideal. I'm going to try to get us to an ideal hand here. Okay. So in this hand, what we want to end up with is we want to end up generally with a Duke Engrave with a takeover setup. So in this particular setup, we're going to summon Gozuki because we have Desire in hand and Retainer in hand, no Duke in hand. We're going to be able to do this. We're going to activate Gozuki, we are going to send a Vampire Duke from our deck to the graveyard. Now we're going to activate Desire. Desire will allow us to change the level of Gozuki into a 2 and dump Retainer into the graveyard. Now we can activate the effect of Retainer, pitch another Retainer so we can use that in the graveyard next turn, special summon itself. Retainer will activate upon being summoned. We get to search a takeover. Like I said, remember I said this is your ideal turn 1? We'll set 2 and we'll pass. Now, it's his turn, right? He does his thing, right? Does his main phase. Alright, he goes to battle phase, right? He's made a strike bouncer, and not a bouncer, like an M7 on the field. Then we're going to chain. Takeover. We're going to special summon Duke, and then we have the option to pop. Now, there's nothing on the field to pop here. So, once we summon our Duke, we'd be able to pop the card, make them send a card, and then, because of Kingdom, we can dump a Vampire from our deck to the grave. So we could dump another Vampire and continue combos. So we're gonna go to our turn. Let's pretend we dump another vampire. So we dump a familiar. What are we gonna do afterwards? So we dump a familiar. Next, we activate the effect of Retainer in the graveyard to summon back our Retainer. If they set a back row with an M7 or whatever, then we're able to do this. We can take a Desire or an Awakening, and then we can Exceed into Crumbling Logos. This is a great way to play through back row here. At this point, we have options. We have Baron to steal their M7 on the... Well, their M7's destroyed. If they have another monster on the field, we can Baron steal it. We also have the option Desire, Revive Duke. Since it's properly special summoned, we can get another float. We can Awakening if we run a second Duke out of the deck, so that's another way. So really nice. So they just to let you know there's several options there. So that's your ideal turn 1. How do we want to play this on turn 2? Well, I'm going to show you. So we open up the skull. We dump a Retainer. Now, ideally, we wouldn't open up the Baron, but we did. So if we want to steal their monster, we have the option to Domain. Now, if they have like a Gaia Fusion on the field, let's say they have a Gaia Fusion, we can activate Book of Moon, book their Gaia. So let's say we booked it, right? Just gonna set it because I can't really activate in any other way. Let's say we book their Gaia, right? They have a Gaia on the field. Okay. Now we can activate Domain, get our additional normal summon. We're gonna tribute the skull here. We can activate our Baron, give them Retainer, and get their Gaia. Very nice. And then have, oh, well, we don't have Awakening anymore. But we'd have that, and yeah, that would be pretty good. So that's something you can definitely do. Turn 2. Another card that you can play in this deck that we didn't discuss is Econ. Econ's another deck card. But the only thing I don't like is that if you go up against a bouncer, it's hard to OTK without Retainer if you Econ them, so I don't feel it's as good. But it can definitely be used. So we're going to activate Desire, and we're going to send Retainer. This is an optimal hand. Remember, Desire can send even if we have a Familiar on the field. So it's another way to get Retainer in the graveyard. So in this case, we can send. We can summon Retainer. Be careful against Sidra summoning these in defense because End Dragon does pierce. And then we can search an Awakening, and because we opened up Takeover, we have a live Duke. Now, how would we have a live Duke here? I'm going to show you. So in this particular case, right, we would activate Awakening first. And it's very important you do this. Do not chain one to another. We're going to summon out Duke from the deck in attack mode. Now we activate Duke's effect, right? So he sends a specific card from his deck to the graveyard. Then we play Takeover. And then we activate Kingdom. And then we can summon our Familiar. So off of this, we get 3 monster field. And then we get to pop a card in the field. So even optimally, without opening up Gozuki or Skull, we still have plays. Very nice. Okay. So one other thing I want to bring up, which I really can't show off skills here, is Utopian Array. So the thing you want to do is eventually you're going to get down to 1,000 life. Baron helps you do that. So that's the one thing you need to know. Baron helps you do that. So once you get down to 1,000 life via Baron, Retainer, the Domain, and Familiar, you're going to use Utopia Ray. So level tuning, what level tuning does is it can target 2 of your monsters and change them from both 1 to 4 and make them the same level. So if you make them 4, you can go Utopia and Utopia Ray and OTK a 3,000 body or less with that. Through a perfect 4K life. So that's a very good, easy win con. So that's going to do that for the vampire tutorial. If you want to see more, I cannot stress this enough. Follow me on Twitch. We are doing a tournament soon. We are doing a vampire climb. Me and a few of my streamer friends. So make sure you are followed for that. I'm going to be climbing the KOG with this on the free-to-play account. And I will teach you as we go along with this. I'm also bringing Ritual Beast to Battle Phase next week, and I stream it. So if you want to see me play in Battle Phase, Duel Links Entertainment's tournament, make sure you are followed to me on Twitch. Okay? I cannot stress enough to do that. I also help out with other decks. I can help you get KOG. I am a god of Ritual Beast. Crystron. I know Megalith really well. I can teach you Triumph, I can teach you the book. I KOG with a lot of different decks per season, so make sure you are followed to me on Twitch. Okay, and from there you can join the Discord. I'll try to get a link here as well. Alright? Sorry I've been on a little bit of a hiatus. I've been busy a lot with Twitch after getting partnered, so I haven't focused on YouTube quite as much in the last month. But now I'm back, and should be uploading at least once to twice weekly. So you will see a ton of YouTube content coming back. So until next time, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and follow me on Twitch. Until next time, till we try.